What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid had a very kick-ass day on Friday, so a lot of people want to know if this good momentum is going to roll over into this upcoming week, and in my opinion, I think it is going to be dependent on the negotiations. So we do know that so far this weekend, there's been kind of, so far, a lot of good progress between China and the States. So I think that's going to be the big catalyst. A lot of high expectations, even a lot of crazy updates on some individuals just really speculating, hey, US and Chinese representatives just abruptly leave. Turns out it's lunch. So it's just, that's the extent that people are really watching these negotiations. So that's going to be a very big deal for the broader market. In addition to that, you have the dreaded CPI on Tuesday. You have also on Wednesday quite a few Fed speakers, and actually, in fact, throughout the whole week, there's a lot of Fed speakers, including yours truly, Powell. I believe that is on Friday, if I remember correctly. Thursday. But aside from that, Thursday, you also have PPI, retail sales. And then on Friday, you have permits, starts, and Michigan consumer sentiment. And over the last couple of reports of that has prompted a pullback. So all in all, a lot of things that could really move the broader market. Aside from that, though, this is what Lucid does have planned. So it looks like some pop-up studios. They're going to be in, it looks like Georgia. Aside from that, that seems to be the only one that they're really doing for this week. And in my opinion, I think they've really toned this down. And I don't know if that's a positive thing or negative thing. They didn't really talk on that in this last earnings, but they, I feel, are really launching a new Gravity campaign as what should be coming soon. And maybe that is causing a lot of their marketing to pivot. So they're not going to outright stop all these pop-up studios, but I think the frequency of them have really gone down. And again, I think that's maybe for the better. I don't know. Let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Aside from that, though, one thing that has really been kind of floating around quite significantly on social media is various offers. And I did bring this up on Friday. So kind of could be seen as a positive thing or as a negative. It's all dependent on, I guess, your current sentiment on Lucid. But you do see some pretty deep discounts. So this is the Canadian offers. There's obviously the Saudi, there's the American offers, a lot of different variations of this. But Canadian offers, you have that 2,600 on-site vehicle bonus, 3,000 Conquest, and then the additional Tesla Conquest offer. So pretty good stuff. As you can kind of see, for instance, the Lucid Air Touring, it's 109.3, potentially getting it up to 13,000 in additional credits. So very good stuff. And honestly, one of my biggest issues with this was the rate of conversion. And for instance, comparing this to the American deals, just the Lucid Grand Touring, for instance, 110.9. And so if we kind of plug this in, it is very close to par. I think obviously the benchmark that they use, the Canadian dollar has gone up a little bit. So it's actually better right now, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of the broader market is very focused on tariffs. And as of late, even though these offers, in my opinion, are pretty kick-ass, Canada does have that flat 25% on American products, including autos. So you pretty much have to tack on another 25% to this. So I feel like that is going to be a very big barrier that Lucid needs to get over. And obviously a lot of analysts did focus on that in the last earnings. So this is why the market is really focused on a lot of these tariffs and going kind of hopefully reducing. And we did have a UK deal, and it looks as though that there's going to be a lot of other deals coming out in the foreseeable future. Hopefully Canada is one of them, and then that way a lot of Canadians can benefit from these very very good deals. And as far as I'm aware, I think these are up until, the end of May. So May 31st, 2025. So that's pretty much the next big thing for Lucid, in my opinion. Shorts going into this week, 29.3% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 361.34 million shares. Shorts, for whatever reason, even though Lucid did have a very kick-ass day on Friday, did increase 1.78 million shares. Just put out a video today under Financial Journey, my other YouTube channel, and it was a top 5 most heavily shorted EVs, and yours truly, spoiler alert, is number 1 by a long shot. The second most heavily shorted EV is Rivian, and I think that was at like 18.3 percentage wise, so a whole like 11% more is Lucid. So this is crazy stuff. And honestly, even if we zoom out, short interest has only increased as pretty much them operationally has increased and productivity has increased. So definitely something doesn't jive with Lucid. I really do hope that at least in the foreseeable future that we do find out some of the reasons why someone is really targeting Lucid. At the same time, it'd be really nice if Mark, obviously he's the interim CEO, and if he just comes out and does the interview and just does the exact same what 𝗪𝗧𝗏 did for Palantir and just said, hey, F the shorts, F their Coke dealers, we're coming for you, and blah, blah, blah. Like, at least Lucid has the big brother PIF behind them, whereas Palantir, they were a very speculative stock at that time of that comment. Of course, things worked out for them, but yeah, I feel like something definitely does need to change. So let me know your viewpoint on that. With Lucid though, closing at that 251, that does mean that the 250 and below strike prices are considered in the money. So 27,000 at that 250, 2,000 at that 2. So 2.9 million shares ultimately does need to be covered by market makers. So you could see a nice bump up come Monday for market makers to cover that. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you have 3,000 at that 2, 27,000 at that 250, then 35,000 at that 3, and then again, kind of forward looking, 7,000 at that 350. So meaning if Lucid does continue this good momentum, whether it be because of some news themselves or potentially because of some macro data points, then you could see a fairly nice good gamma squeeze. So just take note of that. But when it comes down to shorts, I don't think that they will let it go all too easy. So if Lucid, let's say, is hovering around that $3 range, you could see shorts and market makers try to manipulate Lucid a little bit, as what we've seen kind of in the past. So just keep that in mind. But with it at 251, trading between this R1 and the pivot, so 241 will be a strong support. I don't really see that being touched unless, let's say, come Monday, Trump just says, you know what, screw China, we're done, we stop negotiations and we're going to increase the tariff. That is where I feel like the market is going to freak the hell out. So, but for face value, things seem to be really improving. Cryptocurrency is really moving higher over this weekend, and that's a good indication of people's appetite for risk usually. So I feel like this upcoming week, you will be seeing a little bit higher highs. So 264, 278, and then 301, next strong target / resistance points, just to keep note of. Aside from that though, no new analyst ratings. So pretty much since their earnings, we've had, was it five or so, and $3 seems to be the high end. Currently, the consensus over the last 3 months, $2.44, representing a 2.79% downside. So rather surprising stuff, but because of Friday's a very good day, you did see it closing above that 50-day moving average. So most likely it's just going to go back to what it was, just wedge bound between that 150-day moving average. So the 100 is sitting at 263, so that's going to be a key point to really watch for. Aside from that, the 200-day moving average is 281. So again, just a couple of key points to really watch for, but nonetheless, I do feel for this upcoming week, I don't know if I can say that we'll close above 3, but I think it is fair to assume that we will be closing somewhere between this R2 and this R1. If we just have optimistic stuff coming out, if we do have a China deal and it's actually advantageous for both countries, then I do feel under that circumstance, then yeah, you could see very close to this R3 or potentially even above that. being hit. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Are you relatively optimistic this week? Are you bearish? What's your general thoughts? And where do you see things going? When it comes down to these discounts, again, I know I kind of brought this up on Friday, but do you think that this is bearish? Do you think that this is bullish? Because the bears always like to say, in theory, like you don't need to add discounts for a product that's in demand. That could be extended even outside of Lucid for anything out there. So again, it's hard. It all comes down to sentiment, and we really need to see Lucid hit a home run this quarter and lay the foundation for a very good kick-ass Q3 and Q4. Historically, Q4 seems to be their one that they just drop what they're doing and just absolutely just produce mass amounts of vehicles. So Q4 is going to be a big deal for this year as per usual, but let me know your general thoughts. Hopefully everyone has a amazing weekend or has had an amazing weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the individuals out there that celebrate and so forth. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.